Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Bill Dutton, the director of the Oxford Internet Institute, and I just want to welcome you here for Dr. Hruska's The Story of Sophos. We're going to record this, so hopefully the question and answers will also be able to record, but if you are shy about being online, either don't ask to speak or else tell us afterwards and we'll erase you from the record. The importance, everyone knows the importance of innovation for the economy and the economic stakes in innovation and technology, and particularly in information and communication technologies. And coming to Oxford 6 or 7 years ago now, I was struck by how absolutely central information and communication technologies, education, publishing, the IT industry, this arena of the information technology industry is absolutely major to Oxford, to Oxfordshire, to England, to Britain, and to develop that economically, both locally and in a global arena, is absolutely so important for economic development here. And Sophos is one of the huge success stories, a local success story that's global in its impact and reach. We're very fortunate to have Jan Hruska here. He did get a degree from Cambridge in engineering and computer science, and came here we're very proud to say, for a doctorate in medical engineering, where he was a student at Magdalen College. He was co-founder of Sophos in 1985 and jointly CEO until 2005. He remains on the board and is a non-executive director of Sophos. I understand he's recovering from a winter bug, but he's very courageous, and we're particularly grateful for him to shore up his stamina and come and speak to us today. There will be a reception immediately after the lecture, so please stay around and we can have informal discussions with our speaker. But may we now welcome Jan. Thank you very much for having me.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Bill, for inviting me to give you the story of our company since, in fact, not just 1985, but also slightly before then. It's a story which it's sort of interesting to count in number of employees, and the fact that we agreed the title of the talk before we acquired another company reflects the sudden growth. So I would like to start by just defining what the problem that we are trying to address is, and then go on and talk about the company itself. So we are seeing at the moment more than 20,000 computer malware samples every day. It's no more a few tens of viruses per month as we used to have in 1988, 1989. It's 20,000 malware samples per day. We discover an infected page, an infected web page, that is a page that can infect your browser every 4.5 seconds. And 97% of all email circling around is spam. At the moment, we are seeing, at the moment meaning a few days ago, we're seeing 1 in 714 emails being infected. It used to be 1 in 44, so at least something is getting better. And 99% of all spam is sent from infected computers. I will go into the reasons why infected computers and why spam is sent from infected computers slightly later on. And the general motivator for all of this is very simple. It is the good old-fashioned money. Why money? Well, follow the money trail. First of all, the goods sold through spam, including the pills that I was talking to somebody earlier on, the size of the market is approximately $4 billion per year. And spam effectiveness, that is, for every n messages, how many of people click on it and how many of people actually purchase anything from it. It's between 0.01% and 0.1%. Compare that to the effectiveness of direct mail, which is anywhere between 1.5% and 3%. So it is lower, but also the cost of sending spam is much, much lower. As a result of this, spammers need lots and lots of computers to send lots and lots of spam from. And they will get them from malware authors. Why? They will want different computers to send their spam from, because if they were sending it from one computer, from one IP address, it would be very easy to just block that IP address and problem solved. So what they go for is lots and lots of infected computers, all of which are sending spam from different addresses. And the way that they get hold of those computers is by financing malware authors. And it is no more now 14-year-old kids that we used to see in 1990s writing viruses, but we now have actually professional programmers collaborating with spammers in order to produce viruses which infect computers, rendering them fully under control of spammers and enabling them to send spam. So essentially, the number of computers that are connected to broadband now all the time, combined with the fact that most computers nowadays have much, much more power than you actually need for processing, enable spammers to use professional programmers to hijack your computer. Your computer still functions perfectly normally, you don't see anything, but in the background the computer is sending out spam. Okay, so what can be done about that? What should you be doing about it? You're all computer security, you're all computer professionals, so this may seem simple, but of course run an antivirus and keep it up to date. Make sure you use a firewall and make sure you patch vulnerabilities. Microsoft issue a patch once every week, sometimes even more frequently. Absolutely essential if you want to keep your Windows hardened against attacks from the outside. And of course, keep passwords safe. Our recent research has shown that 40% of users have one single password for all the accounts. If you think how many websites you're registered on, if you have just one password and one website that you're registered on gets compromised, suddenly all the other websites on which you have accounts, if you have been following this insecure practice, are completely open to the attacker. And of course, people tend to get complacent if they don't use Windows. They say, well, I'm using Mac, Macs are virus-free. Not so. I'm using Linux is virus-free. Not so. So non-Windows attacks are on the rise, and it really is the matter of time before we get the prevalence of non-Windows platforms, malware or non-Windows platforms, at least comparable to the Windows platforms. So where does a normal organization, a typical organization, protect? If these are PCs connected to the network, there's a server, there's a groupware server, there's a gateway, and there is the internet. Your PCs will normally run some form of antivirus on every PC. The server itself will run an antivirus, both scanning the files stored on the server, as well as often scanning files being read from and written to the server. The groupware will have an antivirus and anti-spam solution, which will filter any messages coming, any emails coming into the organization for viruses and for spam. Organizations also place antivirus and anti-spam on the gateway, and also increasingly ISPs are filtering traffic, inbound traffic and outbound traffic for antivirus and anti-spam. Okay, so what is the anatomy of an antivirus product? You can also forget about this and talk about an antivirus, any antivirus product, because they're all very similar. They consist of three fairly distinct components. They consist of the central point, which is called a virus engine. That is what actually discovers viruses. That is what is, if you wish, an interpreter for a language, which in our case is called VDL, Virus Description Language. The VDL is the language which describes viruses. It is processed by the virus engine, which through various interfaces and controls, which are called software components, then discovers viruses, opens files, reads files, disinfects files, has a user interface to tell it when to scan for viruses and so on. So if you look at how do these particular three layers get developed, well, the virus laboratory, that is the place in the organization, in an antivirus organization, dissects viruses and produces VDL, produces a description of viruses. The virus engine team develops the virus engine, and the classical development, produces the software components. And of course, when they are combined, they come out as a product. In our case, it's Sophos antivirus, which you run on your PCs, which you run on your gateways, which you run as an ISP, looking for viruses on the internet traffic. So how do we go from a virus sample? If you recall earlier, I said that we get 20,000 virus samples, malware samples every day now. How do we go from those malware samples to a solution? Well, it goes like this. We start off with one of the 20,000 virus samples. We then analyze it, and this could be analysis done by a virus analyst, in which case, of course, it's rather slow, or in a large majority of cases, as I will show you in a second, the analysis is completely automatic. The analysis produces the VDL, the virus description language, which describes how to detect and disinfect a particular virus or a group of viruses. This detection and disinfection then goes through a very long and detailed quality assurance program, because what we want to avoid is two things. We want to avoid either a false positive or a false negative. False positive when we identify an innocuous piece of software as a virus, or a false negative when we fail to identify a virus as a virus. So both of those are undesirable. Most people would say, most system administrators would say, false positives are even more dangerous than false negatives. Because if you identify Windows as a virus, which it may well be, it could of course block your complete operation. And of course, you then distribute after your VDL has passed the QA, you distribute it to the user. Note that there might be an internal loop here, because if your detection and disinfection doesn't work the first time, as it often doesn't, then you go through the feedback, through a loop here, and do more analysis, you refine it, until you get to something which actually works. Timing. Virus sample, getting a virus sample, there are a number of well-defined and routine routes by which antivirus companies get virus samples. Analysis, automatic analysis can take less than a second in some cases. If the virus needs to be manually analyzed, anywhere between 15 minutes and 7 days. Detection and disinfection production is part of the analysis. QA, we use massively parallel computers testing the solution on millions and millions of samples. So this normally lasts less than 15 minutes in order to test the solution on a very, very large number of executables. And then we try and get the solution from the moment it's passed its QA to the user within 15 to 20 minutes. So you can see how relatively short the whole path can be if the analysis can be performed automatically, or how long it could in fact be if the automatic analysis is not intelligent enough to do it, so we have to do it using a human brain. And of course, if from here to here we manage to get before the virus manages to get from a virus sample to the user, then we win. If the virus gets to the user before, then the virus wins, and of course the bad guys win. So that is a constant battle. This is what the virus lab looks like. This is our main virus lab in Abingdon. And of course, this is one of our most productive virus analysts called Mentor. He or she, I don't know what in this world of political correctness do you call a virus analyst that happens to be a computer, but it analyzes huge numbers of samples, and more importantly classifies huge numbers of samples, so that even if the samples cannot be analyzed automatically, they're already classified, they're already replicated, they're already they've already gone through a process by which the virus will be run in a virtual environment. We will see which parts of the operating system it infects. We will see how it behaves. We'll see what register it modifies, and so on and so forth. So the virus analyst will get all of that information straight in front of him. So all the donkey work essentially will be done by this fellow here. I mentioned that the whole thing is 24-hour operation. That is why we have our main virus laboratory in Abingdon. We have also our virus laboratories in Boston, in the United States, in Vancouver, and in Canada, and in Sydney, in Australia. And the significance of this red dot is that Vancouver also happens to be our spam analysis point. So the whole thing is very much a 24-hour operation, and the reason, of course, why we have it spread in different time zones is that we have that virus analysts don't have to work antisocial hours, although it is not uncommon to go into the virus lab at Abingdon and find at 2 o'clock in the morning still people laboring over some real swine that they got their teeth into, just don't want to let go. So what does the future bring as far as viruses and as far as malware, and then treating spam as malware? Well, there'll be more of them. There'll be more spam. There'll be more phishing attacks. There'll be more malware in general. And the question that we have to ask ourselves: are we actually winning this war? And the answer to that is the war continues. It's not a war with a predefined start and finish, but most battles, I think, are won. And the effect of that is that most people nowadays don't get infected every day. Most organizations nowadays still use their computers while exposing themselves through use of email, while exposing themselves through use of the World Wide Web. And they can do that in relative safety because of the software which prevents the infections from happening. I promised to you that I was going to tell you the story of the company. So I would like to tell you the story of the company. And one of the people that I was pleasantly surprised to see here is Professor Fred Piper, who actually remembers this house. It used to be my house. In fact, this was his living room, and there was a garage. But unlike Hewlett and Packard, we didn't actually do the work in the garage. We did the work here. It was 20 Hawthorne Way, just north of Oxford in Kidlington. It started rather early, in 1983, and this is where we are now in Abingdon. This is the new headquarters, which was opened about 5 years ago, and has space for about 650 people. It's, interestingly enough, surrounded by a moat. There is a reason. There is a reason. When we designed this, chip theft was very common in Oxfordshire. And we were petrified that somebody might break into our building, and not because of the monetary value, it was just continuity of operations. So we looked at how people in the old ages used to protect their castles, and of course a car can't go across a lake, so it's very effective. Okay, this is what we looked like in 1985. This is me. No, this is me. Let's speaker. Fred will remember us like that. And this is slightly aged and wizened to us. So where is the whole operation? We have our main operations in obviously Oxford, Sydney, Boston, and Vancouver. Those happen to be also where our antivirus analysis is done. Vancouver also happens to be, as I said, the anti-spam analysis headquarters. We do our development, software development, in Vancouver, Columbus, Oxford, and Sydney. And excuse me, the rest are our own subsidiaries, fully owned subsidiaries. The yellow dots. We also obviously sell to other countries. We sell to about 150 other countries throughout the world through a network of distributors. It is interesting where other people, such as Gartner, place us with regard in relationship to other antivirus companies. Biggest antivirus company, number one in size, is Symantec. McAfee is number 2, Trend Micro is number 3, we are number 4 in terms of size, in terms of turnover. And we are in the upper right-hand corner, upper right-hand quadrant of the Gartner's so-called magic quadrant. I don't know what's magic about it, but there it is. But there was something before 1985 and before the viruses started. It's what I call version 1. It was 1983. Peter and I just were coming to the end of our second and third year of our research, and we were starting to do clinical work. We were starting to do clinical trials of various devices. In my case, it was a blood flow measurement device where you connect this device to a patient undergoing dialysis, and you measure the blood flow. In Peter's case, it was post-operative pain control, where he is the interface. His device is the interface between the number of times the patient presses the button and the number of cc's of morphine or something worse being pumped into the patient's body. So we were just about to consider these trials, and if you are ever involved with medical trials, there is a big difference in the ease with which you can get the approval of ethical committee to attach a device to a patient, depending whether the device is mains powered or battery powered. Battery powered, almost no problem. Mains powered, mains powered, patient could be electrocuted, all of those things. So we were absolutely desperate to get computer or computers that were battery powered. And of course, there were no battery powered computers in those days. There were research machines, Z280s that we were using, or just the beginning of IBM PC. So what we were absolutely desperate to have was a battery powered laptop. 1983. So we decided, being young, naive, and stupid, to design one. And we based it on a CMOS version of 8086, and we got hold of a biggest sharp display that we could find in those days, 13 lines, 80 characters, liquid crystal display. And we initially designed it to run CPM86, and in the end we ended up running MS-DOS version 1 on it. And we formed a company to do that. That was still while we were doing our research, Executive Computers Limited. And of course, our supervisors threw a wobbly. But nevertheless, we raised 100K to do that. And somebody mentioned that he was working for Barclays at the time. It was from Barclays that we raised that. Not with very good results, I'm afraid, because we wound down ECL after 1 year. But we decided no more hardware is the end. But we did reach the stage of a prototype. And I have, in fact, brought with me a prototype of AC86, which we got to. And you're extremely welcome to have a look at it. I still switch it on from time to time, just to verify that it works. This case, just to show you that entrepreneurs do learn on the job. This case was actually sewn by Peter on his mother's sewing machine, because we got a quote for it, which was hundreds of pounds, whereas he did it in an afternoon. So, as you can see, it's a liquid crystal display. Notice forward thinking. We put in a case which was much bigger, the lid, because we knew that they were going to grow, so we would not have to retool the plastics. It had a cherry keyboard, two batteries on the sides, lead acid batteries. It had a plotter inside, and it had also expansion slots in the back. 4 expansion slots. We call those hardies, not floppies, but hardies, because they were PCB expansion slots. So this is where we got to with the Barclays 100K. We almost managed to sell the design to Olivetti, but Olivetti in those days told us there was absolutely no future in portable computers. And so rather sadly, we wound down ECL, not owing money to anybody but Barclays, and decided, yes, no more hardware. Incidentally, when we started Sophos later on, we went to Barclays and said, sorry, we screwed it up the first time. And they said, and we said, well, can we open an account with you? And they said, get out. So this was the beginning. This was version 1. Then came version 2. Peter finished writing his DPhil, and I ended up marching up and down the square. First of all, they put me into infantry for a few months, and then they saw that I wasn't completely stupid, so they put me into military police, and I spent a year in the military police, of which I spent 6 months actually in a most cushy job that you can get in the army, which is playing the piano in the officer's mess. But I was officially a military policeman. Okay, so that was version 2. And then came 1985, which when Fred got to know us, was that house still there. And there was Peter, of course. Peter now free from his obligations with the university, with brand new DPhil. There was me. There was Sophie. There was a piano. You have to have a piano if you're a successful company. There was a DEC Rainbow, a wonderful machine. The first computer that we got, if you remember, it had a Z80 processor, and it had an 86 inside. So how they managed to combine an 8-bit bus processor and a 16-bit bus processor in one machine, in hardware terms, I still don't know. But it worked. And there were no viruses at the time. And of course, this was Sophie. And just in case you hear the rumors that somehow Sophos and Sophie are connected, not at all true. Sophie was there after Sophos, so not Sophos did not come out of name Sophie. Oh, incidentally, I wanted to run the PowerPoint presentation on this today, but I was not sure that PowerPoint would run in 256K of memory. So we started off by doing what quite a lot of entrepreneurs do, which is looking for essentially a problem to be solved again. Of course, we didn't want any more hardware. And we then said, well, encryption might be interesting, so we wrote our own version of DES. Then Fred came around and said, you guys really ought to be thinking about public key cryptography, because it's a really wonderful thing. So we sort of scratched our heads and wrote our own version of RSA and spent about 3 months trying to optimize it to be able to run on a 4.7 megahertz IBM PC, which is quite a challenge. We even constructed our own algorithm, encryption algorithm, again, symmetric like DES, but unlike DES with 56-bit keys, 64-bit keys, 64-bit block cipher. And then we discovered that authentication was an interesting application, and of course you could use either encryption algorithms for authentication, or you could use something like ISO 8731 authentication. And we said, well, third field that we're going to specialize in is secure erasure. How do you erase information from disks? Because, of course, the operating system doesn't erase it. So how do we erase it in a secure way? And what we found was that sales trickled in. Emphasis on trickled, because it was very, very slow. We would get very excited when we got a £100 order. Every £100 order, which wasn't that often. And what we found was that there were lots of people interested in talking about encryption, but when it came to opening their wallet and paying for encryption, there were very few who were actually prepared to do it. And through sheer luck, I think, it was that in 1987, the first virus appeared. So a creation called Brain, if you remember it, designed by two Pakistani brothers called Amjad and Farooq Alvi from Lahore. They had a computer shop. They designed this virus, which only worked with 5 1/4 inch disks. You know, remember the ones, 5 1/4 inch. And the very far-sighted Norwegian distributor of ours suggested that we develop an antivirus product. So we again scratched our heads and said, well, antivirus battle, I mean, it's all about authentication. So if we discover what on the operating system is modified by the virus, then we're of course discovering what virus has infected, and that way you have something which is completely virus agnostic, and which will work, which doesn't need updates, and it will work, of course, from now until eternity. And we developed this fascinating product called Vaccine, which did precisely that. It could take a fingerprint of your system when it was in a clean state, and then discover periodically when what or if changed on the operating system. It was a generic virus detector, so it detected change, and it was fascinating. But what we found out was that the market did not listen to our good engineering arguments. The market wanted virus identification. The market didn't want to know that the boot sector had changed. The market wanted to know that the boot sector had been infected with stoned virus. The market didn't want to know that the executable such and such had been changed. The market wanted to know that it was infected with Jerusalem. We wouldn't listen. We were convinced, we were completely convinced it was a really bad idea. I mean, who would want software that you had to pay in order to update all the time? And it was a very obviously bad idea, but the market kept wanting it. And economic realities being what they are, we said, oh, blast, I might as well write it. So we wrote this product called Sweep, which was a detector of particular viruses. So it had this virus library. It had a library of virus detection information, and it would tell you exactly what was infected and with what. And what was, of course, staring us in the face, but being young and stupid, we didn't actually recognize it until the money started trickling in, when we were very quick to recognize it. But it is a subscription model of charging, which is a wonderful idea. And that is, you don't sell people a one-off software package. You sell them something which needs updating all the time. And of course, antivirus software is absolutely perfect for that sort of charging, because in year one you will sell 100. In year two, 20% of those 100 will switch off to another supplier. So you will start with 80, and even if you just keep on the same sales effort all the time, you're growing, and you're growing at fairly high rate. And this is precisely what is behind the success of Sophos. It is this subscription model, which of course is replicated by all the other antivirus companies, but it is this subscription model where you don't get revenue upfront, so you don't sell somebody a very expensive package upfront, but you sell them a relatively modestly priced package in year one, in year two, year three, and so on. And of course it works both ways, because people are free to switch suppliers, so it is in our interest to keep the product very much updated and very much able to counter the latest threats, because this 20% of customers, if we are not careful, could well become 30% of customers or 40%, in which case the whole model doesn't stack up that nicely anymore. Oops. So, I mentioned at the beginning the 1,571 employees. Well, how did it work with employees to start with? Peter and I started off being sort of academic. We thought anything with more than 20 employees. I mean, we couldn't see how you could essentially manage a company of more than 20 employees. 10 was more or less okay, but 20 or more, you would get all sorts of things like office gossip and intrigues and backstabbing and all of those things that we didn't really want to get involved in. So we got, first of all, half an employee. We were very worried about that half employee, because if I or Peter didn't get the salary at the end of the month, it would be a fairly easy explanation that there simply wasn't any money there. But if you have to explain it to somebody else who is not the owner of the company, it becomes a slightly different question. So we're extremely careful about this half employee, And we did get her as a first half, and then we got another one, and another, and then we suddenly found ourselves with 20. Before we realized there were 30, and this kept on growing, and as I said, it somehow developed to slightly more than 1,500. This was our first half employee. It's called Karen Richardson. She went off about 8 years ago, and she worked in marketing and started her own company. It's doing very well. And at the moment, we are at that level and growing. We did also acquire companies in the career. In fact, we acquired 3 companies. We acquired a company called Active State in 2003, a Californian company based in Vancouver, hence our base in Vancouver. And we acquired them because we did a technical evaluation of all anti-spam products out there, and discovered that Active State anti-spam was by far the most superior out there. So rather than spend 2 years trying to develop our own technology, and there we were traditionally very sort of not invented here was not a good thing. We always developed our own things. We swallowed our pride. We said, well, these guys have it. It's only $23 million, so let's buy them. And that was a private company, and that was a very good move. We made our second acquisition with a US company, again a private company, in 2007. I can't tell you how much we paid for it, not because I don't know, but I can't tell you. And it's a NAC company, Network Access Control Company. Again, we decided that we can't spend 2 years developing it, so we did a technical evaluation, again, bought technology. And last year, we bought a German company called Utimaco, which, interestingly enough, was a public company, quoted on a Frankfurt Stock Exchange, and we paid 270 million euros for it in cash, and we got encryption capability as a result of that. So we now have the capability to encrypt whole disks, and I especially yearn for when the government lose another laptop that's not encrypted, or another disk which is not encrypted, or because it's wonderful. So that is the state of acquisition. This company was responsible for the jump of employees, which I showed at the beginning. The reason why this is orders of magnitude higher than this is reflected in the fact that they were a public company versus private. When you're buying a private company, you can normally, or at least the theory is, that you'll sit around the table with the owners and you'll thrash out a figure. When you're buying a public company, of course, it's not the case that you can sit around the table with the market and all the zillions of shareholders to agree a price. You simply buy the shares in the market, and as a result, you pay through the nose. And but we did it, so we got them. And so with finances, what did we do, which was quite correct, I think? Peter and I are both engineers, so we don't have any training in finances, but finances are relatively simple. And if you know how to build a bridge, if they teach you how to build a bridge, they, of course, teach you to build a bridge for 15 tons and then stick a sign in the front saying 10 tons maximum. Because you know that at some stage some idiot is going to drive across the bridge and you still want it to stand. So if you run your finances in the same way in the company, you're okay. And it's essential to over budget expenses, under budget sales. So always think that you're going to spend more and that you're going to get fewer sales, and that's the equivalent of your 15 tons versus 10 tons. And if you do that, profits will follow. And one thing, of course, to watch out for, and that is the killer of most companies who go under, it's your cash flow. Because you can have the most profitable company in the world. If you run out of cash in the bank, you're dead. So, something which we learned very early on And that was instituted by our one and only investor in Sophos when we raised £50,000 from Oxford Seedcon Capital. Oxford Seedcon, in a very far-sighted way, they required us to report our earnings and our expenses on a weekly basis. And how good that was. Because it wouldn't be that we would get to the end of the year and suddenly realize, oh God, we have overspent and we didn't earn enough. It was week in, week out, this sort of drumming every week. Are you spending more than you're earning? And if so, reduce your expenditure or increase your sales. Otherwise, you will go under. So it was this weekly reporting that was really good advice, and something that I've been repeating in a number of startups that I've been involved with ever since, with good results. Of course, when you're running a larger company, you always run against this problem of cost control by non-shareholders. What do I mean by that? Essentially, your employees will treat company money as monopoly money. And somehow they do not realize that the pound of company money has exactly the same worth as the pound in their pocket of their own money. And trying to implement that cost control awareness into employees' minds is a very difficult thing. So how do you do it? Well, something which we tried with reasonable success is to base bonuses on profits. We employ a very intelligent set of people, and it didn't take very long to explain to them that a profit is income minus expenditure. Hence, if they expend twice as much as they should have, then the profit is going to be lower, and if profit is going to be lower, then their bonuses are going to be lower. And it worked. But one thing which we found that worked even better than that was when we made people owners. We did that relatively late in the company's life. We excuse me. We started having shares, as in giving the employees the opportunity to buy shares in the company, approximately 10 years ago. And we gradually built the company to such a state that approximately half of the employees owned shares because they bought it with their own hard-earned cash. And suddenly the mind switched, because if they were buying things, hey, I owned that table in the company. So it was suddenly my company, it was suddenly my cash that I was spending rather than company's cash. And suddenly this awareness became much, much clearer. Later on we introduced share options. Share options have a less of an effect on cost control by employees, but they are more of a strategic, longer term incentive in order to retain particular employees for over a prolonged period of time. But they also worked rather well. So over the years, and this is one of my favorites, over the years we have accumulated this knowledge, this sort of received wisdom from various people, including our first set of accountants and various advisors that we had, usually financial. What, in their experience, what signs do they get when they see a company who is about to do the Stuka? So, new headquarters, yes, they say new headquarters. Definitely on the way down. Flagpoles outside the entrance, that came actually from Grant Thornton, who were our first auditors. They said when they see flagpoles outside the entrance, 100% no chance of survival for more than 2 years. So we built the new headquarters, but we avoided flagpoles. Not that we are superstitious, but let's not pull the devil by the tail. We also avoided the fountain in the reception. According to Grant Thornton, again, fountain in the reception is a no-no. And, of course, for fairly obvious reasons, new cars, company helicopter and company jet usually spell out lots of expenditure. And we tend to be sparing on those, and we haven't gone for those two. Yes, we have one quite a few industry prizes, but apparently industry prizes make you give you a feeling of being invincible, and you relax. And so I thought I would just share it with you. And I will finish by just looking at what is the future for the company. After all, the company is there to make a profit. So maintaining healthy growth of profits and turnover is absolutely essential. There's no point in increasing the turnover if the profits don't follow. So it means you work harder and you earn the same or less. So no point. So growth in profits and turnover. Continue giving headaches to competitors. Nothing gives me more pleasure than giving headaches to competitors. Preferably something worse. And grow organically and also through acquisitions. As I said, we used to think that the best solutions were always developed internally. It takes quite a bit of swallowing your pride to say, well, maybe people outside also know how to do things, so maybe acquisition is sometimes the best way of acquiring particular technology. And we will have a second attempt at the IPO. We were the company who closed the London market for tech IPO in October 2007. We pulled it a day before we were about to quote on LSE, and there were no tech IPOs after that. But as General MacArthur said, I'll be back. So when the market conditions are somewhat different to the suicidal conditions that we're seeing at the moment, we will have another attempt. And of course, from my point and Peter's point, retirement, no. The question that everybody asks us, well, now that you're no more CEOs, on the 1st of January of 2006, we became non-execs, and we let the person who used to run ActiveState, the company who we acquired in Canada, we first of all appointed him on the board. Then he got very comfortable with us, as in, not very comfortable as in, but very comfortable as in the working relationship. And then we appointed him as a chief operating officer under Peter and me. And we were doing this. We were in the process of doing a search for chief executive. And after all, we decided, after seeing numerous candidates, some of whom were really scary, as in I wouldn't let them have a go at driving my car, let alone my company, we decided that actually Steve was by far the best person. So on the 1st of January 2006, we said, here are the keys, drive carefully. And everybody keep asking us, would we do it again? And the answer is, of course, yes. If we see the right opportunity, then of course we will. So watch this space. Sorry, that was meant as a joke. Thank you very much.